Good evening, everyone. We're in the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish on April 18th. Athens following Peace Collective, Squamish, Wayomayo. Welcome to the Squamish Nation traditional territory. An agenda in front of council. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Black-and-Wall. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a notice of motion? Seeing none. We have one delegation. Is Kelly Jensen here? Come on up. And this is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. Welcome.
Hi. Where would you like me to start?
The podium is great.
Oh, amazing. I'm Kelly. This is Brandy. Hi. It is come to our attention, both having living and breathing chronic Lyme disease both ourselves for the last few years here in Squamish, that there's a growing number of people in our community. I know personally more than 24 people in Squamish suffering from chronic Lyme disease at all ages, young and old. And as part of my, both of ours too, finding that sense of purpose while we're not working and having difficulty, caring for our families ourselves, and just doing, I think our main purpose and finding that purpose is spreading awareness and education. I have some of the things that I've done so far in my venture to do this is contacting Andrew Huff at the library to build our Lyme resource shelf for books and DVDs and fiction, nonfiction, and autobiography. Also have contacted Mountain FM and the chief. I'm meeting with itinerant staff at the school district next week to talk about how we can support our children suffering from chronic Lyme disease in the school system. Brandy is doing her own venture too.
Yeah, I'm working with Agency Media in the city to bring a Lyme ride here. So it'll be, the date we picked is May 27th, and we will do a mountain bike ride for Lyme. So that's what we're working on currently right now, and hoping that we will welcome that on that day. I can bring more details as we move forward. We're just in the works of securing the trail and a space to have the event.
So in light of all this development that we've sort of pursued and to build awareness, we'd like to have council proclaim May Lyme Awareness Month here in Squamish. Communities across Canada and the United States have already done so, and we just think that it would mean so much to us and our friends if you would just bring attention and acknowledge what we go through on a daily battle
And just help support the awareness, because I think the awareness piece is the key. And Dr. Kindry kind of paved that way earlier on, and we're just here to kind of keep that alive with people, not only people suffering, but just to bring the awareness into the community, to do tick checks and whatnot, whether we start putting up signs on trails, in the estuary, wherever, just so people become more aware of it, and just to have that 1 month, just to bring it into the spotlight.
I've emailed Charlene with some proclamation ideas, a draft, with the supporting evidence and resources to go with that. I think that would be great.
Thanks very much. My nephew had Lyme, so he was from Connecticut, and I think that some of, obviously quite near Lyme, Connecticut, where this
Well, it's the town of Lyme, right?
originated. But I think that's part of the problem, is people sort of think it's an eastern seaboard issue and not a west coast issue. And I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Kindry, because he was really at the forefront of trying to bring that to the public's awareness back in the 70s and 80s. About the fact that yes, there is Lyme on the west coast and it's a problem, and he did all sorts of research and was a real leader in that field for a number of decades. So
I think putting forth this education will help support those who are new if they get exposed to this, as we've all experienced that the medical community is not always supportive of these theories. So
what I'll do is I'll put the motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. Councillor Spark.
Thanks, and yeah, I work on the East Coast, and there, because it's in everybody's mind and everybody's didactic and they speak about it all the time, it's normalized. And you also do tick checks all the time when you come in from the wild, and we don't have that awareness here. And because of that lack of awareness, more people get sick, and it is a preventable, treatable disease, but only if it's caught within a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So it is, I think that having an awareness month is really important, and thank you guys for the work you've done.
Thank you. I actually put in a call to Diane Kindry because what I would like to do moving forward, I'd like this Ride for Lyme to be an annual event, and I wanted to name it after Dr. Kindry. So I'm in contact with her, working on whether what that will be called in the future. But yeah, Lyme is in this community, and it's important that we get the awareness of.
Absolutely. No, really valuable work. Thank you very much. So the motion for the council is that the District of Squamish proclaim the month of May 2017 as Lyme Disease Awareness Month. I'll call the Councillor Pryor.
Thanks, Anne.
And then Councillor Kim.
So we'll proclaim this month, Lyme Month, and then on our website and all that, we'll have all the information on there. Is that what we
We'll
do?
use our communications facilities for sure.
So we have
Yeah,
thousands.
I'm more than willing to
Dates,
continue.
times, send it to our communications department, and we'll make sure we broadcast it through our media.
We have thousands and thousands of people looking at our website.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
And I think another key piece is also to share this information with the school district, because we have our kids out there at lunchtimes playing in the forest and running wild with no head covering and stuff like that. And I think it's very important for that awareness to get into the school system as well for those kids.
Yeah,
so that we
speaking with this, I've been speaking with Jody Langlois last couple of months, and I'm meeting with the itinerant, so this technically a special ed department, who are the first line of dealing with students like this next Tuesday.
Terrific, thank you.
And we like it when our kids run wild, so
Well, mine do, I'm just speaking
I know.
from experience.
awesome. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Green dot. We have two timed items. The first is a public hearing for District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011 amendment bylaw 1009 Aspen number 2508-2016. So, and just before I read the public hearing, consideration of unscheduled public attendance. Is there anyone in the audience who has an item of an urgent matter that needs to be addressed before the next council meeting? See anybody? So as per all other public hearings, I need to read this statement. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Part 14, Division 3 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to council respecting matters contained in the proposed District of Squamish zoning bylaw 2200-2011 amendment bylaw 1009 Aspen number 2508-2016. Everyone present shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, it is important that remarks be restricted to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Members of the public may ask questions following the presentation. However, the function of council at a public hearing is to listen rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. In considering the proposed bylaw, council has received documents which may influence its decision. These documents are available for review and comment and have been included as part of the planning department report, or if received later, handed out at the meeting and included in the hearing package. If any documents are submitted during the hearing, please feel free to review the document during the hearing by asking staff. Members of the public shall maintain order and quiet and shall not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. I now call on the planning department to introduce the bylaws.
Thanks, Mayor Heitzman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Asia Philp, planner with the Community Planning and Infrastructure Department. Tonight I'm presenting an application to rezone a property at 1009 Aspen Road to rezone from residential 2 to multiple unit residential 2 to allow for a townhouse development. Public hearing will follow the presentation. Zoning amendment bylaw 2508 was introduced to council on February 7th and given first and second readings. Prior to the public hearing, fire flow calculations were to be submitted. These have now been received. 3 conditions of adoption were previously approved by council. These include a flood covenant, invasive species management plan, and a land development agreement to secure the community amenity contribution. The subject property is located in the North Yards neighborhood on Aspen Road, near the intersection of Queensway and Government Road, and it's just north of the business park. The proponent is proposed to rezone to allow for up to 8 townhouse units. A development permit under Development Permit Area 7, this is for multifamily developments, would be required if the rezoning is completed. The form and character of the proposal will need to meet DPA 7 guidelines. Any potential variances would need to be assessed through this development permit process. And if any variances are requested, the neighborhood will be notified and will have the opportunity to speak to council on these variances. The proposal meets our interim CAC policy. The proponent has offered the $6 per square foot of multi-unit development to be allocated as per our interim CAC policy. The proponent requested that the CAC payment be delayed until development permit issuance, and this would allow the calculation of the CAC to be based on the approved development permit design, and a land development agreement is proposed to secure the CAC. The proponent was required to provide the fire underwriter's survey calculations to confirm fire flow requirements prior to the public hearing. These calculations show that the existing fire flows are sufficient for the proposed townhouse development. No upgrades to the district's water system are necessary for this development if the townhouses are built to the standards that were used in the fire underwriter's survey calculations. Notice of the public hearing was published in 2 consecutive issues of the Squamish Chief. Notification of the public hearing was hand-delivered to owners and tenants within a 100-meter radius of the site. To date, 2 public comments have been received. These comments are focused on concerns around parking, both on the subject site and as well as on Aspen Road, and as well as drainage concerns. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This concludes the public hearing presentation, and please start the hearing.
Council, any questions for clarification purposes with staff? Councilor Race.
Thank you. In the report, there's different diagrams, but I believe you just said up to 8 townhouse.
Yeah, the applicant's original submission, I think, was for 9 townhouse units, and he's since revised that and is showing 8 units in his plans.
Thank you.
Councilor Cryer.
Thank you. So Aspen Road's quite a big road. Is there a requirement for that road to be built?
Through Mayor Heinzman, the applicant will need to meet the subdivision development control bylaw, which may include full frontage improvements up to the middle line of Aspen Road.
So that's...
So he wouldn't be constructing all of Aspen Road.
Just in front of his property? Okay.
Councilor Shaw.
Thank you. Why is there 2-car garages and 2 of them and 1-car garages, and why are there 6 1-car garages?
That's the proposal that the applicant has submitted, so we'll work with him through the development permit process to look at the details.
Okay.
He's currently meeting our parking requirements, which don't specify the details of how they need to be assigned or what form that takes.
Really?
So again, that's something that we need to work on in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Which is an aspect of the development permit.
Yeah.
Council, any more questions for clarification purposes? Seeing none? Need to start finding people. Thank you very much. I now invite the applicant or representatives to comment on proposed rezoning, after which persons affected will be given the opportunity to speak. After I have confirmed it is your turn, please approach the podium and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. Please note that speakers will be given 5 minutes to address council. Do I have a speakers list? Yeah? Was there one? Do I have one? Okay. The applicant? Is the applicant in the audience? Yeah. Please come up.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tyler Ovington, and I am the one proposing this rezoning. In answer to Councillor Chappelle's parking, this is an unusually shaped lot, so the only way we've been able to figure out to hit our parking requirements so far is to accommodate some of the spaces outside of the units. So, for example, those ones, Asia, would you be able to flip back to the side plan? Right, so the 5 that you see on the west side, what we would propose is Unit 1's second stall would be just in front of it there with screening so that it's not seen by everybody on Aspen, and then Unit 5, or I think it's marked as Unit 1 there, their spot would be also right next to their unit, and the way that it's laid out, their units, those 3 in the middle would have a short commute to their front door from parking their vehicle in their assigned parking stalls at the back. So the way we had envisioned it was to make like a nice sort of community courtyard with maybe like a 1 or 2 km/h drive speed and have some sort of real community feel to it. We haven't exactly dialed in how that's going to work yet. We wanted to go through the rezone process first and hopefully be successful in that. And then obviously the community usable space is going to be a tight one, so we'd like to just make the most of it by incorporating some community gardens and just doing whatever we can to really maximize how well that space is used, since there's a very short amount of it. The two double-wide garages and the 3 units, those ones are big enough to fit the full-size parking stalls in the interior, and we wanted to try to screen as many of the parking stalls as possible because we know that nobody wants to just drive down the road and see a big parking lot. So that's why we've allocated up to the 6 stalls in the rear and as many as we could inside the units. As far as the overflow parking goes on Aspen Road, we can do our best to imply some strata rules there, assuming we move forward. But I noticed in one of the comments it mentioned parking issues from 3 other developments that are already existing. We're sort of limited on what we can do to control those other people parking there. The drainage is something that's going to come up in our stormwater management plan. We've been required for on-site and off-site stormwater management plans, so all of the water in and around that area is all going to have very specific location, and we work closely with our civil engineers to address all of those issues. And like Asia said, that would all be part of the DPA 7 requirements and part of the development permit process if we're able to obtain our rezoning. And also, you know, these kind of sites are really appealing to us because they're vacant, they're small infills, they have in our opinion, a fairly low impact on. It's not like we're not going out and clear cutting any trees, and we're not taking away green space, and we're just really trying our best to use space that's already there. You know, it's a good neighborhood, nice quiet street. The industrial park, as everyone knows, is growing. Lots of good things going in there, small restaurants, athletic bounce, rock climbing, all that fun stuff in the neighborhood. So we felt like, sort of the same way as Target Homes, that is an appropriate spot to try to create a little bit more density with your guys' permission, of course. So that's just an overview. And I would look forward to any questions that anyone has after.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing? Put your hand up. For a second time, is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing? For a third time, is there anyone who wishes to make any further representations? There being no further speakers, just going back to council to see if there are any questions or for clarification. See any? Since I've asked 3 times, I now declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, we have our second timed item, which is the Community Planning and Infrastructure 7A1 Development Variance Permit number 123, 1003 Glacier View Drive.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to introduce the newest addition to the planning department, Jessie Fletcher, our new planner. And
Welcome.
she will be presenting this development variance permit.
All right.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Be patient. All right. Good evening. Again, my name is Jessie. I'm here to present the development variance permit application for a rear setback reduction for 1003 Glacier View Drive. The subject property is located in the Garibaldi Highlands along the northern arm of Glacier View Drive. It's located in a primarily residential neighborhood. The zoning for the subject property is RS1 residential, and the official community plan designates it as residential neighborhood. As you can see in this slide, the applicant has applied to reduce the rear yard setback from 7.62 meters to 4.97 meters, and this allows the applicant to build a deck as proposed. And this is just an aerial of the proposed variance. I should note that this is an aerial from 2013. There are homes now on those other 2 lots, but the more recent aerial didn't give us a very good angle of the rear yard. To accommodate the proposed deck, the applicant is requesting a 2.65 meter, that's about 8.7 foot rear yard setback, reducing it from 7.62 meters to 4.97 meters. Staff would like to note that the intent of the rear yard setback is to ensure that the use of the property does not infringe on the privacy of neighbors, that it allows room for open space in the rear yard, and it provides filtration areas for stormwater runoff. The same rear yard setback applies to all properties zoned RS1, including those along Glacier View Drive. Legislative and district processes for this engagement were followed for this application. No comments following this process were received. However, the applicant did provide 3 letters of support with their application. In reviewing the application, staff noted that the portion of the deck that intrudes into the setback is minimal and largely limited to the gazebo. The variance would allow the applicant to have a more functional outdoor space. The impact on the neighbors appears to be minimal, and the applicant has indicated that by building the deck, it would act as a privacy screen between the main floor tenants and possible lower basement tenants as they would like to pursue the legalization of their currently unoccupied basement suite, following the approval of the development variance permit. Permitting variances without hardship or reasons that fit with community growth management policies introduces potential for more variance applications of a similar nature in the future. Staff recommend that council authorize development permit, variance permit 123 as presented for 1003 Glacier View Drive.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for clarification purposes? Councilor Craig.
I see in the package that there's a couple of letters from neighbors saying they don't mind. Is that the 2 neighbors below?
There's one on either side and one below.
Because I know this property kind of looks down on the one below.
Council, any other questions? Seeing none, as this is a variance, the public has an opportunity to speak to the variance. I'll first see if the applicant is in the room and if they'd like to speak to variance. You don't have to. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Hector Aragon and Melissa Aragon.
Yeah, and just wanted to say thank you for considering our application. And I think one of the main reasons that we love living in Squamish is being in the outdoor spaces, and our property right now has a very tiny deck, and being able to have this deck as we proposed would allow us to enjoy being outside a lot more.
Basically, barbecuing happens out of the garage.
So romantic.
We spoke to all our neighbors and proposed it, and they were supportive.
Thank you for your consideration.
there anyone else who would like to speak to this variance? Don't see any other hands. Council, any other questions for clarification purposes? Councillor Kent is moving the variance. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Chappelle. Councillor Kent, would you like to speak to it?
No? I think the
Councillor Chappelle?
I just want to say that I appreciate you coming in for a variance, not just building the deck and having to do a variance after the fact. I think that's highly responsible, and I hope that becomes a trend in the future. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next up, 8A1, first three readings, consideration for the District of Squamish, Cleveland, Victoria, Main Street Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw. And I believe, Ms. Matthews, you're going to do a report outlining all of these loan authorization bylaws, and then we'll vote on them one at a time.
Thank you very much, Mayor Heinzman. For the viewers in the audience, my name is Christine Matthews. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the district. Yes, thank you. I would like to talk to all 7 of the bylaws before you. They're all loan authorization bylaws. They are for a total borrowing of $7.8 million, just over $7.8 million. And they represent an estimated $995,000 worth of debt service. As Council is aware, loan authorization bylaws just give us permission to go for both interim construction financing and then to ultimately take those projects to debenture financing. Right now, we're currently sitting, just for information, currently sitting at about 14.33% with fees included on our overall borrowing authority levels. And just for clarification, the fire equipment under bylaw 2534 includes 3 projects: the Tantalus Fire Hall door, the bay roof, and the SCABA, or the SCBA equipment, which is breathing apparatus for the fire department. Council had requested those go on short-term borrowing, but we're only authorized to have so much short-term borrowing without going to loan authorization. So we're taking them to a loan authorization, but only have a 5-year amortization period. 5 of the bylaws are going on a 4 of the bylaws, 5 of the bylaws are going on a 15-year term, and the solid waste vertical expansion on a 10-year amortization, and the fire equipment for a 5-year amortization. This represents all the general fund ones represent probably about a $5.35 impact on a household, and the water is dealt with through water rates would be about $5.07. The solid waste vertical expansion does represent a significant hit on the solid waste and represents close to $33 on the average household. Unless there's further questions, who will summarize this?
Council, any questions? Don't see any, so these are in front of us for consideration one at a time. First one up is District of Squamish, Cleveland, Victoria, Main Street, Streetscape Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw, number 2530. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Kent. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish gives 3 readings to the District of Squamish Forestry Building Roof Replacement Loan Authorization Bylaw number 2531. 2017, moved by Councillor Pryor, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish Water Main Replacement Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw number 2532, 2017. Given 3 readings. First, moved by Councillor Brackman-Wolf, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. District of Squamish Fire Fleet Aerial Apparatus Loan Authorization Bylaw number 2533, 2017, be given first 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Pryor. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. District of Squamish Fire Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw number 2534, 2017, be given first 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Pryor. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish Landfill Vertical Expansion Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw number 2535, 2017. Be given first 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. And the District of Squamish Dike Upgrade Design Acquisition and Capital Works Loan Authorization Bylaw number 2536, 2017, be given first 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish 2017 property tax rate bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Heinzman. Before you is a bylaw to set the 2017 property tax rates for the municipality, library debt, the SLRD, and the Sea to Sky Hospital. Community charter requires that we pass this after the financial plan and before May 15th. On April 11th, we met with the Finance and Audit Committee to review how we assess and distribute the taxes required over the various property classes, and Council at that time decided to maintain or carry on with a fixed ratio approach. They had also been approached by the port for some assistance with they were seeing a huge impact on their taxes to the tune of about 61%. The rates, Council reviewed that in detail and determined that they would reduce the non-improvement rate to 25. That is below the capped rate of 27.5. And that property is subject to also a 22.5 cap on improvements as established by the ministry. The overall effect of the taxes on properties is a little bit of a difficult assessment. We do use market average, or the average for each class, to determine some form of metric to provide guidance on that. As the community knows, we had very volatile BC assessment rates this year, and there was considerable concern given that those had raised about 38% on average across the municipality. 4% of that was considered non-market change, which is either growth or improvements in property values. The way we assess taxes, the BC Assessment Authority value is divided by 1,000 and we multiply it by the tax rate. We have control over the tax rate, and we control that by deciding both what the level of financial plan revenue requirement will be. We established that to be about $26 million, and these tax rates pull in that amount of funding. We also establish tax rates based on how we distribute that $26 million across the various properties. And like I said, we went with a fixed ratio. In determining with some of the non-market change, although the overall net new revenue was 6.5%, that represented about a 5.5% yield overall from 2016 for existing properties before non-market change. We reduced almost all the tax rates by about 22.5%. to come out with $26 million. And to give a rough idea on the average property, for instance, a single family resident, that would be $149 per year average change. And that represents about a $12.42 per month change. All other classes, with the exception of the port, their average value, and we determine average based on the total assessed value divided by the number of folios in that class. The average for all other classes actually went down, and that again is due to non-market change and other factors. Unless there's further questions, Council had requested until April 11th a little more information about the impact of other agencies, because reminder to the public that we only assess our own municipal tax rates. We are required, however, to collect for other agencies, and those other agencies include the British Columbia School Districts, Municipal Finance Authority, the region and hospital, which those rates are included in our tax rates bylaw, and the BC Assessment Authority. We actually had the lowest increase of all of the organizations in terms of percent value. So there is some increases in school district. On the average property, that increase results in about 11.8% change. The Municipal Finance Authority is minuscule. It's about 12 cents to 16 cents per property. So it's, although the percentage looks really big, it's not that big in order of magnitude. The regional district is up about 10.4%, hospitals up about 16%, and BC Assessment Authority, again, a very small assessment value. To put that in context, though, percentages are sometimes alarming. Overall, that average property changed by about $279 per year, so it is significant. Unfortunately, we can't control the other agencies, so unfortunately, that's not what you're passing tonight as you pass this property tax bylaw. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Councillor, any questions for Ms. Matthews? See any questions? Is there someone who would like to move the first two readings of the property tax rates in bylaw? Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Race. No one want to speak to it at this point? I'll speak to it very briefly. As you know, this is a result of the financial plan, 5-year financial plan, budget. It's a very tough thing to come up with when you have a limited tax base to disperse the burden onto. But I think Council did a pretty good job of trying to make it fair, continue our trend from burdening, overly burdening commercial and light industrial tax bases, but keeping it within the realm of possibility with regard to the other classes. It's tough when you're a growing community to keep up with the demands of the community, and we're right at that sweet spot right now of dealing with a big infrastructure and trying to make sure we're growing that tax base to be able to meet the demand of that big infrastructure that is, it was pointed out in an earlier agenda this afternoon with regard to most of our infrastructure coming to its 40 and 50-year lifespan, and then we have to plan accordingly to make sure we're keeping up with that necessity. So, you know, no one ever likes to increase tax rates, but I think this is fairly fair. And council and staff worked long and hard over the last 4 or 5 months with input from the community, and so I can support this. Anybody else? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have second reading consideration of District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2011 amendment bylaw MUD 1, number 2523-2017.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jonas Sondishkis. I'm the Director of Community Planning, and I'm about to load the presentation. Just a second. There we go. So this is bylaw 2523, 2017, which proposes to do 3 things. The mixed-use District 1 zone would apply to 5 properties in the Sea to Sky Business Park. It's a combination of light industrial, office, neighborhood commercial, and apartment uses. It would rezone 4 residentially zoned properties and 1 property that is zoned light industrial. The second amendment included in the bylaw is the definition of bulk gas and fuel loading and storage facilities and exclusion of that use from the industrial definition, as well as permission of the use on certain district lots. And then the third aspect is the 20-meter vegetative buffer along Aspen Road added for light industrial zone. Just to recap the history on this amendment, the first reading took place on March 7th. It was followed by stakeholder engagement. A number of changes were made, and the amended bylaw was brought back for discussion at the Community Development Committee meeting earlier this month. We've gotten some more feedback from council, and further changes were made before coming back for second reading. So I will just quickly recap the changes that we've proposed since the April 4th meeting. So business and professional office major is now only permitted in Area 3, which is at the northern end of this proposed rezoning. The office minor would be permitted in all 3 areas. On the second level, the R&D facility is now permitted in all areas. It used to be only permitted in area 1 and 2. And then we've included noise mitigation measures. So for ventilation ducts, as well as for window rating, there would be a higher standard to deal with some of the noise coming from the railway and the rail yard. So any development, residential development along the rail line or within 40 meters of the rail line would have to build the ventilation ducts with acoustic lining and then have a higher rating window for noise. We've also introduced a requirement in Area 1 for any residential development, any residential units to have a covenant on title advising of the industrial activities in the area as well as proximity to a rail yard. We've also proposed to reduce visitor parking requirements for residential units as long as those visitor parking requirements for commercial are labeled with residential as well as commercial, so they'd be shared visitor parking. The idea is that those uses for parking will occur at different times of the day. This is just a highlight of what's changed on the use allowance in MUD 1. So that's the office major and minor as well as research and development facility. Clarified the definition of bulk gas and fuels loading and storage facilities. We've had some engagement with the forestry sector, and they had a valid concern with this amendment affecting their operations. The forestry sector requires on-site fuel storage, and so the amendment now recognizes those uses as being excluded from the definition. So they would be continued to be allowed where forestry uses are allowed. And the recommendation is for council to give second reading as well as schedule the public hearing for May 8th. Would have to be a special meeting. May 9th falls on the election day, so we're proposing May 8th as the date.
I have a quick question and then I have Councillor Elliott. With regard to the advisory covenant, did I hear say only zone 1?
Yes, area 1.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't have it just on all the residential within that complex?
Area 1 is probably going to be most exposed because of the rail yard activity that's more intense on the south of this parcel. I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious for people moving into the area that this is a mixed-use development. We could expand it to all of the areas, but I think where it's most important is Area 1. That's where the heaviest industrial uses are permitted, and it's closest in proximity towards other industrial uses across Pioneer Way.
I'm not sure I agree with that rationale,
I had the same question as the mayor, but why wouldn't we just advise people that they're moving into a mixed-use area? That they can expect noise in, I think, all 3 of those areas. My other question was for the bulk gas. I don't know the quantities that the forestry industry is needing to store, but are we putting a limit on that, or, I mean, is it a lot? I'm just trying to understand.
We don't have a limit on that. I'm just going to pull up the information.
What exactly are they storing?
So when you're operating forestry equipment, you have to have fuel on site to make sure that you can refuel, because you can't go to the gas station with the excavators and all of the equipment. So it would be whatever is customarily associated with forestry uses. But trying to define the quantities could be tricky.
Okay. And my last question is, in the table of all the allowed uses of those 1 to 3,
I think I brought this up last time, in our definition of neighborhood commercial, it allows personal service establishments,
Yes,
but then we have personal service establishments limited to level 2.
yes.
And how are we going to make that clear in the zoning so that we don't end up with personal service establishments on level 1 in the neighborhood commercial area and in zone 3?
Well, the idea was to keep it open to have a wide variety of uses permitted, and that would allow for personal service establishments on the first level. The population density might sustain both personal service establishments and a neighborhood commercial in Area 3. I mean, it's a fairly big area compared to the density in this neighborhood. So that's why we kept it open. But if council wishes to change that, we could.
So for clarity, personal service establishments are allowed on the main level and the second level in Area 3.
In Area 3, yes.
Councillor Pryor and then Councillor Rice.
Yeah. I thought after all our discussions that the layout might be a little bit different. In that we've got the highest density right near the railroad crossing. And with the train coming down and all the cars backing up there, and it just didn't make sense to me, and I thought after we did all that, it might have changed a little bit. I thought Area 3 might wrap around Queensway a bit, and Area 2 either go there or Area 1 go across there. I just expected to see some change, and I was surprised not to. So, but I guess can you comment on that again?
Well, I'll say what I said before, which is that there is quite a significant setback from the railroad in Area 3 and 2 and 1, and that's 50 meters from the property line. So that brings, your building approximately 40 meters away from that railroad, and that's the reason why we propose to keep it that way.
But what about all the traffic hitting the crossing, backing up, preventing people from getting in the massage therapist that's on the second lot in Area 3? How do they get in there?
Well, there will be two access. There will be an access off of Pioneer Way as well on that property, and I believe there's interest amongst the property owners here to establish as kind of a limited access points into the development, so that not every property has multiple ins and outs.
Yeah, okay. Well, I look forward to that because I don't really like it like this.
Councillor Rice.
Well, that took care of one of my questions, was how far that 40-meter setback would deal with the properties in Area 2, and so it covers off the western portion of them to some extent. So it acts as a buffer, I think, for the ones on the eastern side, the Queensway side. The other question I had was with respect to the bylaw, when it talks about bulk gas and fuel loading and storage facilities are only permitted on properties legally described as, and there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 legal descriptions. Can you say in general terms what those apply to? Are those existing gas stations, for example, or something like that?
No, so the amendment recognizes gas stations as having to have on-site fuel storage facilities wherever they are. The district lots specifically are referring to the area that is subject to the wood fiber LNG proposal.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I'll move second reading, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. I think certainly at second reading, I think this is a supportable second reading. I think this was a really good test of how we can sort of develop the concepts around the plan, go out to the public, get really good public feedback, some expertise to help refine and figure out a pretty interesting solution for that corner. So I look forward to the public hearing where people can sort of comment, but I thought that process was quite good of doing first reading, sort of setting out a template, getting the intentions out there, getting that feedback from the various stakeholders and experts in the community, and coming up with a pretty innovative solution. to this sort of transition zone between the residential and the industrial park. So this goes to public hearing. Councillor Race.
Thank you, and I'll support this as well. I commend staff for the changes. I think that answered certainly my comments and questions that I had about the development at first reading, and I'm happy to see the stakeholders weigh in on this and make their changes. So I think this, some of these issues, I think around circulation and stuff, we can deal with at the DP time and so forth, but as far as zoning goes, I'm happy with this and happy to support it.
Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you. I agree with all the comments that have been made, and basically I'm really happy to see some innovation in zoning and some opening up of the zoning in between and having those transition areas, so it's not hard and fast lines between what we set as workspace and live space. And I think we're going to be seeing more integration of live workspace in the future in that whole area.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And just as a reminder, there is a public hearing scheduled for May 8th. That's a Monday. So it's election day on May 9th, 6 p.m. in council chambers. Next up is HC1, which is consideration of third reading for bylaw 2011, 1009, asking number 2508. Reading moved by Councillor Race, second by Councillor Chappelle. Councillor Race.
Thank you, and I'm happy to move this and support this. I think this is a good development, as the proponent said, makes good use of a piece of land that at the moment isn't really being used. It is infill development. It is development that is consistent with the neighborhood, and certainly the way the neighborhood is trending. We've had, lost count now, I think 3 or 4 rezonings in this neighborhood from single family to multifamily, and it's definitely the evolution of this neighborhood, and this is consistent with that. I do want to comment, though, we received correspondence from adjoining properties with respect to parking on Aston Road and so forth, and I'm sympathetic to a point. I think all of the developments that exist there have parking provided in the buildings. Overflow parking, if you spread onto a public road, and Aston Road is a public road, I think from that point on, you're on your own, and I don't want to have that negatively impact what otherwise is a very good development proposal. So I'm happy to support this.
Anyone else? I'll speak to it briefly. Yeah, I think this is again a great little infill development. I really like the rejigging of the layout. I think it's much more attractive than the original proposal that is in front of us. I'm glad to see the developer contracted 1 unit because I think it really just makes the site actually workable. I look forward to seeing the development permit on this one, and I have to support it. I'll call the question. Councillor
I just wanted to say I support it as well, and I think that the proponent, Ms. Drivington, came in well prepared this evening to answer questions and to alleviate any concerns that we had, so well done. Thank you for that.
Nice to see some young blood out there making the town better. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries.
Don't forget the little bud.
You're glad that's moving on to adoption, we have District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2011 amendment bylaw mini storage garage restaurant number 2511 2016 that it be adopted. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Race. All those in favor?
I've thought a lot about this, and it's mostly because of the density that we are proposing in areas. Is there any way to separate 2200 and 2011? It's too late.
It's the same thing.
Mini storage and drive-through.
Oh. It's all in one bylaw, though, right?
There's 2 bylaws, 1 report.
Sorry, say that again?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, not 20.
There's 2 bylaws attached to this first report.
Yeah, oh, yes.
2511 and 2512. Oh, 2516.
We're just
17.
dealing with 2511 at the moment.
Yep, 1 at the moment.
We're just dealing with the one, it is all, it's
Mini
included
storage
in
and
one.
drive-throughs.
Yeah, the time to separate them out would have been at
Yeah.
that third reading.
Okay, I'm just gonna make a comment then on the mini storage. And I know that we talk about, you know, how many jobs per acre, but there's not too many other areas where we talk about jobs per acre when businesses go in. And mini storage, I think, is something that we're going to have to address in the future because we are densifying like crazy and having smaller houses and smaller spaces to live. And as a result, less room to put toys and activities. We want people to use their garages for their cars. And yet we're removing the possibility of having more mini storage areas. And by doing this, we're creating an oligopoly and basically allowing a very few amount of people to have control over mini storage. And it's going to increase the price significantly for people to store their goods. So because it's attached to another bylaw, I should have thought about this before. I thought it was a good idea. People made good comments. But the more I think about it, the more I think that our community is going to be in need of storage if we're going to have a requirement, if we want people to park in the garages and they're going to need outside storage. So I'm going to pass this bylaw or approve this bylaw, but because of the drive-through restaurants. But I wish I had spoken earlier to separate them.
So, my understanding is that both of these two were basically saying we're not going to allow them in zones, but just like a drive-through restaurant, you can come and apply for rezoning. And it was to help manage and keep our employment lands for employment lands. But we can absolutely spot zone for mini storage if there's a good proposal that comes forward. This is not banning mini storages. This is simply saying how mini storage, like a drive-through, needs to come for a rezoning in order to go through.
That's right.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have District of Squamish zoning bylaw 2020-2011 amendment bylaw miscellaneous amendments 2512-2016 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cryer, seconded by Councillor Race. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish zoning bylaw 2020-2011 amendment bylaw Paco Road 2517-2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Chappelle, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish 5-year financial plan bylaw. You don't need to just, there's someone who wants to move adoption. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Black and Wolf. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Staff reports, community planning and infrastructure with station replacement award.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Simmons. I'm the district's capital project manager. The first report is before you for the replacement of the sanitary lift station on the intersection of Judd and Lawson. This represents one of the last 3 Smith & Lovelace lift stations to be replaced. This one is 44 years old and is a test to how well these lift stations have performed, and we're just straight replacing this one, the same capacity, same parts and pieces, just a bit newer. Another highlight of this is that we've initiated these replacements in 2011, and we've done a number of them since then, and at this point we're no longer getting contractors to install these, and we're using our own forces to install these lift stations, and that's reduce our cost of installation by as much as 75% on some of the previous projects. So we're looking forward to pushing this one ahead as part of our last 3. Outside of that, I put over to you, Mayor, for any questions.
Any questions for staff? I don't see anything. Would anyone like to move it? Moved by Councillor Kent that we award the 2017 sewage lift station upgrades equipment supplied to Black and Baird Limited based on their quotation response of $84,411 plus GST. Seconded by Councillor Chappelle, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the agreement. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And next up is landfill vertical expansion phase 1 tender award.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, this report is before you to obtain your authorization to accept the tender from Whistler Excavations Limited for the phase 1 of the vertical expansion of the landfill. Our 2017 capital budget includes roughly $2.4 million for this project. We have broken this down into phases, not only for some of the clearing that needed to happen before April 1st, but to continue to work on design while we're doing subsequent phases. This project represents the first phase, which is really the toe berm that's required for the MSC wall, which is going to be the vertical component. And we're scheduled to go out on the phase 2 of this project very shortly. This project was fully publicly tendered, and we've included the costs that came in on that tender closing, and we've worked with Whistler Excavations on a number of projects, and they've actually worked on capital projects up in the landfill previously in 2012, so we look forward to the opportunity to work with them again to get this project kicked off.
Thanks. Why is there such a huge, almost double in the budget implications and the tender prices?
So that's one of the,
Sorry.
through you, Mayor Heitzman, that's one of the things about public tendering is that we go out to the public and these are the prices that come back. One of the parts, as you're aware, is that we're sourcing our own gravel for this project, and the contractors that are in the kind of lower cost here have found a way to do that efficiently. So we're thinking that's a major contributor for that.
It's a huge discrepancy.
It absolutely is, that's correct.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, would someone like to move the tender award? Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed? Any motion carries. Next up is the paving tender award.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next report's before you to get Council's authorization to accept the tender from Alpine Paving in the amount of $778,000 and change for the 2017 road replacement project. The highlights here were we are in front of Council March 14th to have a discussion about what roads were to be repaved and the strategy surrounding some of the damages from the bad winter and the frost heave and pothole repairs. Subsequent to that meeting, we went out immediately to BC Bid with the roads list for this year and received only one bid from Alpine Paving. And the amounts are within our budgeted plan for 2017 capital. And again, the contract is available to start tomorrow.
Question or?
So they came in 20,000 under the budget?
It's a function of units, so we set out the units based on the roads list, and we set out that based on the square areas to be repaved. So there are some variable components in here for base gravels and asphalt and shouldering, but largely we've captured what's in the road list for this year.
Great,
Okay, move that, Councillor Kent?
okay.
Seconded by Councillor Chappelle. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I actually want to post motion question.
Okay.
In years past, we have had, for years, we didn't get anyone except Alpine bidding on paving award. A couple of years in a row, we started to get some interest from the Lower Mainland. I know they have trouble meeting our criteria. Is there a reason why we're not seeing any interest or competition from outside of Florida?
We haven't had any feedback from anyone. I know that there was, maybe back in 2010, there was a few other bids that came in. It's challenging in our location, largely because some of the other plants that are located around the Lower Mainland are at a distance where it's very challenging for them to deliver the mix at the correct temperature to get it placed properly, but not impossible. We have had capital projects where we've bought mix out of North Vancouver and been able to install it without issue.
I know some of the developers use other paving companies other than Alpine, and the batch seems to be fine with them. So I'm just, a little competition is good to help our citizens out on the bills. So
Yeah, absolutely.
to somehow get some encouragement there.
Yeah, I think we're always looking for opportunities to reduce our costs in these projects. We have historically run 3-year contracts through the tendering process, and
No, we haven't historically, just the last 3 times. We used to do it 1 year at a time.
Yeah, I just in my tenure here, we have actually gone out for a multi-year contract to try to leverage that, which other municipalities have done somewhat successfully. And again, we'll just look for more opportunities moving forward.
Councillor Kent?
One more quick pose question. You said they could start tomorrow, are they?
Yeah.
Thank God.
Councillor Thorne?
You know, assume,
Yeah, I
there's a
believe-
huge, there's an assumption of
Years
that.
ago, someone applied for a permit to set up a batch plant just prior to the Olympics for the highway expansion, and they were turned down.
Isn't that cute?
I don't know, I don't think it was cute, but it was out of the Chica fan area, and it was on Horse Woodlot, but anyway, council of the day didn't support them. So we only have one supplier.
There you go. Okay, well, public, no, we've already done that. Number 5, 2017 wastewater treatment plant, bar screen upgrade award for design services.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This next report is before you to get Council's authorization to accept the proposal from Stantec Consulting for the detailed design component of the bar screen upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant, which is a function of the 2017 capital budget. The budget this year includes $620,234 for upgrades to the existing bar screens. And for those that may not be familiar, this is the initial, some of the treatment in the headworks of the wastewater treatment plant, and nothing is as simple as just replacing a piece of equipment in a wastewater treatment plant. It's a system that has impacts on any changes at all. So a function of our liquid waste management plan called for the size of the screens to be reduced from 15 millimeters down to 6 millimeters. And that's all part of kind of the next 5 years of capital projects and capacity upgrades that are scheduled for the wastewater treatment plant. And it's right out of the liquid waste management plan. The reason this report's before you is that Stantec's got intimate knowledge of a lot of the previous upgrades that have happened at the plant, and had a really good team that was on the UV project for us. And so in the discussions with them, and a proposal that we've sought from them, we're looking to proceed with that project and complete that in 2017 so we can make the next project in 2018 kind of fit within that 5-year capital plan for the plant.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, does someone want to move the tender? Not the tender, the award. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Call the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. And the 2017 annual water main replacement design services request for change order.
Fair Husband, if I can speak first, this is the project that last week council passed a motion to approve, but we brought forward this week a paper report to back up the decision so that it's appended to an agenda for transparency and also to provide more information to the public.
Any questions about the report? Council was okay with its decision of a couple weeks ago, last week? Okay, so we don't need to move this?
No.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to B, real estate, 9B, real estate, long-term real estate facilities strategy scoping. Mr. Plum.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Neil Plum, Manager of Real Estate. District has been offered $10,000 in funding from the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, UBCM, towards the completion of our long-term real estate strategy that's in progress. In order for UBCM to release the funds to us, they actually want a council resolution acknowledging that the funds would go towards that strategy. So you have a proposal in front of you in your report to accept the funding from UBCM. In addition to that, staff are asking that council consider adding the $10,000 in funding onto the existing project budget, which is $40,000, to create a total budget of $50,000 for the study. And the reason why we're asking that is that we've been working with the consultants on this project for a bit now, and they've done a pretty thorough review of our existing mode of operation, I'll call it. And what we've identified in there is some opportunities to add some scope to the project that we hadn't really contemplated in the beginning, and to do a little bit of a deeper review of our operations to enable us to make sure that when we go to implement the strategy, that we're not hitting any roadblocks or challenges from a process perspective that might slow our implementation of the project down. And what we're looking at doing is, instead, when we started the project, we were focused a lot on how real estate and facilities work and within their own realms. And what we're seeing is an opportunity to develop better integration amongst all of our departments and to do a better job of understanding the scope of our individual departments, so how we work together. And we're hoping that by doing that, we're going to focus our activities and get faster turnaround times on the work that we're doing, and enable us to make sure that when the project gets into implementation stage that we're not getting hung up on procedural issues. So,
Any questions? I guess that was my question, is why would we increase the scope versus reduce the cost? Project to keep the same scope, and I always worry a little bit about scope creep on these things that are necessary or unnecessary, so
absolutely.
you think this is good bang for our buck?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of informal activity that goes on between the departments. There's a lot of collaboration that occurs, but it's all happening at a very informal level. We all work together very well, but it hasn't been very well documented. And there's times when, when we're working together, the roles get a little bit blurry. So we felt it was really important to have everybody clearly define their roles and priorities going forward. And this was a great opportunity to use the consultant while they're digging deep into our organization and our processes to get that advice.
Well, my hope is it goes deeper than that. It goes into a real strategic vision on facilities and how they build capacity based on, like, it's not like that.
Oh, the strategy is much beyond what I'm talking about here tonight. This is just the little component that we're talking about adding to the strategy. This is just to make sure that when we go into the strategy mode that we're not getting hung up on internal procedural stuff.
Was the grant specific to increasing the scope, or was it just to deal with the project?
The $10,000 is to be used as the district decides how to use it. So, yeah.
Can I just follow up with that? So I was just looking at the project information, and with our real estate plan, I was hoping that we were also going to look at P3 policy. The project information doesn't have anything on integration with P3 or how we address combining real estate strategies.
So through you, Mayor, so for the purposes of that, I didn't bring in the full package on what the strategy was all about. I was just looking solely at, utilizing the additional funds for additional scope. So I really focused the discussion on what the additional scope would be. So things like P3 and all that would be dealt with in the main part of the project. Absolutely.
So this is just the additional?
This is just the additional. There will be more than this. This was just the first ones that came to mind that we've recognized for sure. But I have a feeling there's going to be a few more others. But that's all part of the main body of the strategy.
Okay. Any more questions? Moving? Moved by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Chappelle. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Human Resources, Public Safety, Community Wildlife. Protection Plan, application.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jeff Sims, Senior Director of Human Resources and Public Safety. Alexis.
Hi, I'm Alexis Craig. I'm the Emergency Coordinator for the District of Squamish. And
no, you go ahead, Alexis.
Okay.
It's your project.
so I'm just here today to ask Council to pass a motion for the Community Wildfire Protection Plan application. In order for us to submit an application to UBCM, we need to have a council motion that says they support our application. So essentially what we're asking for is financial support funding to put together a community wildfire protection plan that will basically identify our risk areas that we would want to put prescriptions to mitigate the risk of fire within our community.
Sounds like a good idea. Are you moving it?
I am.
Moved
I'll
by
speak to it too.
Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Shell. Councilor Ray.
Thank you. It's something I think about every summer that has a hot and dry spell, and I know other communities do this. I've seen the covenants, and I'm happy to see we're moving forward with this. Happy to support this.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
I agree with that.
I think we all agree.
I agree about it this summer too.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There is correspondence for action.
Sweet.
My computer's dead. Sorry. So, First letter is from Charles Rummel with regard to our sister city, Shanicho. And happy to take a meeting with Mr. Rummel, so I'll do that. That's what he's asking, and he outlined some very positive things, and I agree with him on the nature of, and Shimizu has been very, very good at coming and supporting Squamish, and I feel sometimes we don't reciprocate as much, but we do value the relationship, so I'm happy to respond to that. I don't think we really need a council motion for that. There is a whole bunch of correspondence for information. Look for council if they'd like to pull any particular item. I think a lot of these things we've actually addressed through some other conversations that are all going on. Perhaps we'll refer items 11 and 12 to staff regarding roundabout at Cleveland. Actually, just 11. I don't think 12 necessarily needs to be.
Can I just pull the BIA?
Yeah, sure. I'm asking council, I've got a couple I wanted to pull, that was one of them, but we'll pull the BIA. Anybody else? Want to speak to the BIA?
I just want to let the public know that there's an annual general meeting on April 20th at 5:30 p.m. at the House on Inn, and there'll be a new board elected.
And good speaker.
Yes, great speaker on this.
Also just want to speak to the Chili Tom experience. It looks like a fantastic program to honor a former resident of Squamish, passed away a year ago now. And it looks like just a fantastic program to get kids inspired by art, help disadvantaged people with art, and just really honors his legacy, so that's lovely to see. And a motion to refer number 11 to staff. I'll move it, second by Councilor Race. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. I think the other ones are all sort of being dealt with. Wouldn't mind maybe referring Joanna Schwartz's letter to staff as well about snow removal. Moved by Councilor Race, seconded by, I'll second that, Councilor Pryor. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. And I think the other ones we've talked about already. Move a receipt of all the letters. Moved by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Pryor. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. We have approval of the minutes from the special business meeting of April 4th, regular business meeting of April 4th, committee of the whole meeting of April 11th, special business meeting of April 11th. And I will have some business arising from the April 4th regular business meeting, just for council's information. Looking for a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councilor Pryor, seconded by Councilor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. There's a recommended motion from the April 11th committee of the whole meeting that staff be directed to work with the Senior Centre Revitalization Team to amend the Squamish Senior Centre Revitalization recommendations to reach consensus with the Senior Centre Society, specifically regarding the two matters outstanding, being the name of the facility and defining age-appropriate activities and programs at the centre, and that finalized recommendations be brought to council for approval. Moved by Councilor Race, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Business arising from the minutes, I'd like to draw council's attention to April 4th. I'm going to have to find it in my agenda. So this is the, I wonder if someone can help find it in
Page 169.
Yeah, okay, great.
169.
So this is the motion for the development permit number 424 Green Technology Center. And I'd like to to bring it back for reconsideration, mostly because of a procedural issue that we need to make sure we're doing properly. And so I'd like council to consider reconsideration of this motion. And if it's seconded, I'll bring that forward. If it's seconded, I will propose an amendment as well. Seconded by Councillor Kent. So technically this motion is now on the floor.
The mayor doesn't. The mayor,
Maybe I could get, what's that?
you don't need a seconder, you can just.
I don't, right.
You just toss it on there.
Well, you
It's
got
tossed on the
one
table.
anyway.
So, sorry, it's on the floor. And I'm wondering if maybe, Caroline, you can read out, this is with regards to the DP for the Green Technology Center. And I'd like to propose an amendment that the first subject to only read registration of statutory right-of-way on relevant parcels securing land necessary for maintenance of shoreline protection, future construction of sea dike to account for sea level rise up to 2 meters, and critical drainage facilities to drain wave overtopping water, period. And take out the next part of the subject to. Can you read that, please?
SROW to extend a minimum 12 meters to the land side and 10 meters to the water side of the future natural boundary, and no buildings shall be located within the SROW.
And so scratch that sentence and add a sixth subject to, and that staff investigate and follow process to vary the setback as outlined in the PDA. And if the amendment is seconded, I'll speak to it and happy to further amend the amendment if it's not clear. Seconded by Councillor Kent.
Do you know where I'm going? Second, just move forward.
I don't mind, but I'll go when I'm ready.
Okay, just, I'm not sure you saw him.
No, I did see it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will go to Jonas in a moment. Just putting this on the table because there seems to be a bit of a procedural issue with having a variance within the DP that wasn't originally there, and that the variance to the PDA needs to go through a different process, and we want to make sure that we're doing this properly from a process point of view. And so we want staff to make sure, investigate how it's properly done. This is sort of the first time we're dipping our toe into the PDA waters, if you want. Or there's a lot of puns in there, but and so we just want to make sure we're doing this in the right place and in the right way. And it didn't appear that it wasn't through the DP that we were going to achieve that. We needed to do it through another mechanism, through an amendment or through a variance of the PDA versus the DP. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, my only recommendation is to wait another week. We still have time till May 2nd to bring this back. We are still unraveling the implications between the PDA, the flood covenant. So it would be great that when it comes back for reconsideration, that we have we've gone through every single scenario and answered all the questions. There's still some questions that we have in terms of how does the PDA and the flood covenant and the rezoning talk to each other. So there's still some unanswered questions.
We didn't do a rezoning.
No, but the zoning has a setback, the PDA talks about the flood covenant, and the flood covenant then has a report attached to it. And we're still investigating how those interplay between each other.
Did I read my amendment? Staff investigate and follow the process to vary the setbacks as outlined in the PDA. So this is a direction to investigate and bring back what those solutions or what that process may be for council to consider that process. That's what the motion is.
Okay.
And that the DP not be approved until such time as all those subjects are met. There's DP subject to 6 different things.
Yes.
Is that clear? Robin's looking concerned.
Mayor Heisman, I'm concerned that Mr. Villaniscus is not comfortable with that there may be unintended consequences with the amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct. After the April 4th meeting, we started investigating exactly how the flood covenant and the PDA work together, and we haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet. I suspect that this week we'll get there, but it would be great when this comes back for reconsideration, because all of this is coming back for reconsideration, that we know exactly how far, the district's authority is on establishing a setback for flood protection.
I don't know that I wanted to make a decision tonight without that information, except perhaps to refer it to Committee of the Whole for discussion, assuming that information comes back to that Committee of the Whole, as opposed to going directly to another business meeting. So
And I think that was the intention, yeah.
Yeah, would that, if we just moved, directed it or referred it to Committee of the Whole meeting, which I suppose would happen next week,
I haven't looked at the agenda for next week.
would that work for staff?
That would be enough time for us to make sure that we have answers to all the questions we've got.
So not vote on reconsideration today, it's on the table, and refer this to the Committee of the Whole next week.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to refer, moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. I think that's essentially what I was doing, but that's okay. I'll call the question, all those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Any other business arising? Seeing none. Committee minutes and reports, Community Development Standing Committee, that if you received for information. Hello? I'm going to move receive. Move. Thank you, second by Councillor Blackmore. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. And there is a committee recommendation that the District of Squamish and the school district continue to work with Vancouver Coastal Health, local agencies, community service organizations to define priority health areas for 2017 to 2019 based on inputs from the April 4th, 2017 Community Development Standing Committee workshop. Moved by Councillor Kent, second by Councillor Chappelle. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. There's Public Arts Select Committee meeting minutes for received for information. I'll move that, second by Councillor Kent. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Finance and Audit Standing Committee meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Chappelle, seconded by Councillor Breyer. Just testing to see who's paying attention. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. And there's a letter from R&B Meyer, Random Clothing, Commercial Products, be referred to staff for follow-up. Moved by Councillor Race, second by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Don't believe there are any councillor staff and camera announcements. There is no unscheduled public attendance. Open question period for clarification related to agenda items. Anybody? Council or staff announcements? We'll have a good Easter, Passover, weekend, long weekend. Just a few things, and maybe Councillor Race wants to follow up on this. We had a SLRD joint meeting with Whistler. Do you want to speak to that at all? Or talked about mainly the same things, affordable housing and transit. There seems to be some movement forward by everybody to finally action some of the transportation issues. Everyone's getting up to speed, shall we say?
Yeah, thank you. And I think for me that was one of the positive things. This was on April 6th up in Pemberton. It was a meeting between the SLRD board and the Council of Resort Municipality of Whistler. And one of our first steps on forming a system for regional transit is figuring out funding models. And so we've given very clear direction between the two boards to a working group to come back with recommendations in that regard, possibly including a motor fuel tax. I think that's the way we call it, what we call it. And so I think that hasn't happened, despite all the discussion before. That hadn't really happened. So if nothing else happened that day, I think that was a positive thing. And we have also just general discussion about a number of regional and common regional issues. So a good meeting. So the Resort Municipality of Whistler Council has instigated these. We had one in Squamish here, and this was the SLRB's one.
And there was a little more movement understanding of the need for a governance, regional governance committee to help get started, and I think there's a staff working group that's trying to figure out, I think we directed them at that meeting to come back with what that may look like, what would be the timing of that, what would be sort of the outline of what that would look like as a first step. And so the staff technical committee is going to bring that to respective councils sometime, hopefully.
Is there a timeline on
Pardon me?
Is there a timeline on that?
I think mostly everyone was just waiting for the provincial election to be done, but I think there's finally everyone's on board and understands the steps that need to be taken, and so I think there's, people want to move forward, in a fairly timely manner. It's going to take a lot of community dialogue to talk about what it means to have a new motor fuel tax and move that issue forward. And the governance committee, I'm looking forward, I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think they were, staff is going to, ideally when they meet next, come up with that framework on what that governance thing will look like, and I expect that relatively quickly. And then how quickly each council, mandates that. It's up to each council, but I think we're going to have that joint recommendation from the task force, staff task force committee or whatever it's called, fairly soon. So that was the expectation, I think.
It was easier to set up a task force to discuss setting up a committee than just setting up a committee?
The task force exists, the staff task force exists, and so they are going to come and basically do the research and say, this is the governance structure, these are the steps that each municipality needs to do to set up the structure, where would the administration of this thing be, who would encompass this governance entity. So that's...
It's not too bad to hear that moving forward. It's exciting. It's hungry.
I'm a little bit painful, but it's getting there. That's about it for me. Anybody else? Yeah.
I was at the Civics Conference last week, as was Councillor Chappelle, and the theme was Dare to Share, and so there was lots of great information about bike shares, car shares, short-term rentals, actually, and a number of our staff were there. So I think, especially around the short-term rentals and how that fits into our housing task force, I know there's a recommendation there, looking at some regulations. There were some great examples from around the province about what communities have done to engage the community in a discussion about how to manage short-term rentals. So I look forward to talking about that when that hits the agenda.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I'm so glad to see LMLGA resurrect CDES. It was a bit of a pet project of mine when I was on the board and president, so it's good to see. It was meant to sort of be pushing sort of the edge of the technology pressures that municipalities are faced with, and so this, I think, was the second one. So it's good that that's been resurrected, and that's done in partnership with LMLGA and Civic Input. Excellent. Anything else? No. I will look for a motion to terminate this meeting. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.